As far back as I can remember, I was taught that the children of Israel are God's people. They are God's chosen, holy people.
Yeah.
That was the conditioning that I grew up with.
In a fundamentalist Pentecostal background.
People will literally blow themselves up for their religion, sacrifice things.
Sacrifice their lives.
Sacrifice their lives for their religion, go into battle for their religion, torture, kill, destroy for their religion. Religious conditioning is really powerful. I go into the River Jordan and I come out and it's almost like there's a knowing that you know before you know.
How have you made sense of this moment?
As I looked at what I was seeing, I started to really realize what was going on the ground. It took me some time because what I felt like I was having to do is undo the conditioning around, in my mind, saying something bad about a chosen people, a holy people, the people that birthed my faith, the people that gave us Jesus Christ.
Roots and Rigour, Rigour and Flow. Roots and Rigour, Rigour and Flow. Roots and Rigour, Rigour and Flow. Rigour and Flow.
One.
Good afternoon to you. I feel like I have turned up here ready for my news.
Literally, Charlene White, watch out. Is all I can say.
I've turned up in a lime green jacket.
You have.
It's giving
Kiwi.
Power News Kiwi. Is it kiwi?
It's giving kiwi.
Oh, I thought it was very much more luminescent yellow green than kiwi, but it's true actually. It does look like kiwi.
When
flesh.
they blend it for a smoothie, that's
true.
That's the colour.
That's true.
The colour of health.
Thank you. I'm glad you didn't say the colour of snot or something.
Oh no.
disgusting.
No, that would not be good. Okay.
And you are looking watermelon-like.
I am.
Beautiful top.
Exactly. Welcome back to Rigour and Flow with me, Aiwan.
And me, Tamanda, the show where business meets love.
And culture meets critique.
What have we got today?
Woo! Today is it's one where I think we have to tread extremely carefully because it touches on a very fractious, fraught topic that's very current right now in the public consciousness and produces a lot of very, very strong feelings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing we're going to talk about today is Pentecostalism and Zionism. Now, as far back as I can remember, I was taught that the children of Israel are God's people. They are God's chosen, holy people.
Yeah.
That was the conditioning that I grew up with.
In a fundamentalist Pentecostal background.
Exactly.
For clarity. I'm sure lots of people know that by now, but if you don't know, that's the setting you grew up in.
That's where I grew up. And it's not just fundamental Pentecostalism.
Yeah.
Evangelical Christians are raised the same way.
I was raised with that same teaching as well.
Exactly.
In a Catholic church and also church hopping with friends.
This is it. It's not just reserved for the more stringent forms of Christianity. This is just the general gospel that is associated with Christianity. And for those who may not know, the book that we read in Christianity is the Bible, and it's split into two halves. There's the Old Testament and there's the New Testament. The Old Testament is essentially the Jewish holy book. It's the Torah. And then the New Testament is what came along after, and it essentially tells the story of Christianity, and it's founded on Jesus Christ, right? And we read both books, and we take both books very, very seriously. And in the Old Testament, it's almost a story of what we now know of as the Israelites or the Jewish people, right? It's how they came to be who they are, to be a people set apart, to be,
God's chosen people.
To be God's chosen people. So in my community, we were taught that both halves of the Bible are important and foundational to our understanding of ourselves as Christians, even if, in theory, the thing we follow mostly is the New Testament. Although there's a lot of cherry picking, and that's a story for a whole other day. You know what I mean? Our belief was that the Jews are God's chosen people. They are a holy people, and they are set apart as the representatives of God on earth, for want of a better term. They are the people that are the founders of our faith.
Yeah.
And from that community came some of our most revered prophets. Prophet Elijah, Moses, as we all know the story of Moses, Prophet Elisha. There were so many prophets, and then there were, many figureheads as well that we really revere. So that's King Solomon, which most people know, and his hundreds of wives and concubines. And then there's King David, who is the ancestor of Jesus Christ, right? So these are people that we really hold in high regard, right? Yeah. And I think the other thing that was really striking for me growing up in that space was that it would be sacrilegious to say anything bad about the children of Israel and Israel itself, because the land itself is considered the Holy Land.
Yeah.
It's considered the Holy Land. And so that is the place that is where Jesus set foot. He walked that land. He grew up in that land. All of our prophets, all of our revered figures came from that physical land. And so to say anything against Israel, its people, and the physical land would be seen as blasphemous. That is the conditioning that I grew up with.
Yeah.
Right? So that's just I think I just wanted to set the scene where that's concerned. I think the other thing that's really important to understand is that the children of Israel, as they were known for us back then, were the group of people that brought into the world monotheistic religion. So that is one God. The surrounding people around them at that time were polytheistic. So they served many gods, and often their gods were figurines carved out of things. And it was considered, the children of Israel considered that idolatry, worshipping of idols, right? There's a load of ramifications for that in terms of us as Africans, because obviously
I was just thinking about like animism and the way that we also had different structures of worship.
Exactly. So there's a lot of issues, but that's not what today's topic is, and maybe we'll come on to that in another episode. But certainly there was almost a gratitude amongst our community that they had shown us the light by introducing us to the one true God.
Right.
So there was also a gratitude and a thanks for that you turned us away from the darkness of our idols and our indigenous witch doctor practices, or whatever it was that they called it, and into God's marvelous light. So, and that was my conditioning for pretty much my entire life.
Yeah. Okay, it's so interesting. First of all, I'm going to just pause you right there because I want to get into some of the things that I'm feeling as you talk and some of the things I'm observing in you as you talk.
Yep.
So one of the things about this link between Zionism and Christianity is that I don't feel competent to speak to this topic in the way that you do, because I don't feel especially literate in Christian theology, despite the fact that I grew up in Christian communities, right? And went to church and went to Sunday school and all of those things. Yet so much of what you're describing feels implicitly familiar to me.
Okay.
I grew up with hearing the same things. They maybe weren't pushed so forcefully, but these are, the idea of the children of Israel, God's chosen people. These were definitely all in the atmosphere for me. So it's quite helpful listening to you articulate it. But the other thing that I'm noticing, watching you articulate, just in particular in your last sentence, you got almost anxious and started shaking your leg. So I'm curious.
It's a good thing you can't see under the table. You can't see under the table. My toes are curled. My knees are shaking.
And you did a lot of foregrounding of this episode about how fractious and difficult
I think it's
this episode
important.
is.
I think it's really important.
But talk to me about how you're feeling and what feels important about having this conversation at this moment.
Do you know what it is? I look online and I see the debates that are raging across the internet, but also in person, the debates that are being had.
About Palestine specifically.
About Palestine. Yeah,
so
the situation in the Middle East at the moment between Israel and Palestine. And it is so, it's quite violent what's happening. And when I say violent, I'm talking about violent in terms of the words that are being thrown around, in terms of the arguments that are being had, families are being torn apart, communities, friendships are being torn apart. Like, it's a topic that is so big and so present and so filled with heat and rage and anger and frustration and so many other things that talking about this feels tricky. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Of course it is. Yeah.
And I think it's important to talk about it because I feel like some of the things that we're seeing, particularly from Western powers, we don't often realize that a lot of it is underpinned by some of the things that I'm about to talk about, because we often see the West as secular, but actually the roots of the West in terms of Western civilization as we know it over the last few hundred years is actually very Christian. And those forces...
Judeo-Christian.
Yeah. Judeo-Christian, yeah. And those forces are at play on the geopolitical stage, even if it's not as present. Like, people aren't waving Bibles, but the Bible actually weirdly does underpin it. And so I thought it was important for me to talk about that, because it might help people understand why certain things are happening or not happening as they should be happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I want to talk about it. I might be I hope I'm not clumsy in what I say, and I hope that I'm clear. But what I'm trying to get people to understand is that the conditioning, religious conditioning, is not a joke. It has taken me well over a decade just to undo the conditioning around just being queer. Never mind trying to undo any conditioning around how I've understood Israel and the children of Israel. And that's me, who's no longer even in the church. Never mind those who still are in the church and go, 6 days a week like I used to go. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to put something out there, start a conversation, and maybe help people understand a little bit more, maybe, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think it's really important that we hear the perspectives of people from a whole range of views. And, one of the things I find fascinating, even just listening to what you've said initially, was the way you were taught to see Jewish people, the children of Israel, as God's chosen people.
Yeah.
And the deep, almost reverence, it sounded like, that in your community existed. And the reason I want to mention it is because as you're talking about how, like, people understanding the world, I've also heard very different views from Christians. So just going back to, I was once interviewing a civil servant who worked within the arena of freedom of religion and belief, which is about human rights and religious freedom, which is obviously very relevant to what's going on in the world at the moment. And she herself was, I believe, an evangelical Christian. And she described the opposite almost to what you described.
Yeah, but that's because there's two sides. I haven't quite finished my thing, but
that's why I wanted to ask you this question, which was that the abiding thing I came away with, having spoken to her, was she said that she was raised as a Christian to be quite anti-Semitic.
Yep.
And she talked about how, in order to do her job in the freedom of religion and belief world, she had to undo a lifetime of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And that she had worked closely with Jewish people close to the government in order to do that. So I'm curious about whether that anti-Semitism feels familiar, just to deepen people's understanding.
Well, that's the thing, because so the other side, there's a reverence for the Jews. Like, my mum's eyes would light up if she met someone and they said they were Israeli. Like, they would actually light up.
Really?
But then there's another side to it, which is, in my community, what we were taught is that the Jews killed Jesus.
Right.
And that's it. There was the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all of those Jewish leaders and the Jewish community at that time that killed our Messiah. Because you remember, Jesus is the center of our faith.
Yeah.
Like, he's the one who's going to come back again, take us to heaven. He's the one who died for our sins. He's the one who did all those sermons.
He's the Son of God.
He's the Son of
which is
God.
quite a different
Exactly.
conception.
And so then we were taught that they killed the Son of God. So there's almost like this weird love-hate relationship
Right.
with the children of Israel and Judaism. And also they don't accept that Jesus is the Messiah.
Right, exactly.
They don't accept that at all. So there's also this thing of not only did you kill him, but also you don't accept his ultimate power as the Son of God. So in a way, there's this thing of, we love you, but you're also heathens, and you need to accept Christ, otherwise you're going to hell.
Right.
So it's like,
so that felt familiar to you. So this is another piece of, people who may have not had much contact with Christian faith or religiosity in that way, which is, as you say, in a secular society, one of the big things we talk about in my space is that the levels of religious illiteracy for so many young Brits growing up today are wild because they didn't grow up going to church. They didn't grow up. So they may not understand any of this, this love-hate thing that you're talking about.
And unfortunately, RE in school doesn't really go into those nuances. It's more just top line of,
what do you think about euthanasia? How do this faith respond to marriage? Like,
Exactly.
it's very often, not necessarily going into the political side of it, which is controversial, contentious, and teachers fear tackling it.
Exactly.
Let's face it.
Exactly. The funny thing is, despite this weird ambivalence, love-hate thing between, my sect and the children of Israel, or, the Judaism, we would often go to the synagogue. So particularly towards the end of my time in the church, our church in Leeds, we would often go up to the synagogue in Leeds. I want to say Sweet Street. So up in round here, there's a big Jewish community in Leeds. And we would often go up there to the synagogue. And we would all sit around a table with rabbis. And then our church and a few other churches, Christian Pentecostal churches. And we would go there to talk.
So this was like an interfaith dialogue type of situation.
Yeah, but interfaith, only Jewish and Christians.
Yeah,
nobody else, because we don't like anybody else. It's not that interfaith. The Hindus can't come.
Not multi-faith.
No, it's not multi-faith. Yeah, and even that just dual faith.
that's the
Old Testament meets New Testament. That's it. Don't bring any other faith there.
The other heathens.
No, we don't want those ones. We're just about coping with the Judaism. It's so bad. It's awful.
Terrible.
But yeah, so we'd go there to talk about our various faiths, the community. We'd pray together. How much we accepted their prayer, I don't know. Maybe there was some crossing of toes and blocking the ear a little bit.
Maybe they were shaking their knee under the table.
They were like, hurry up and finish, Rabbi.
Yeah.
And then we'd break bread, have some drinks and snacks and stuff like that together. And so there was that as well, whilst knowing that we also had this belief about what the Jews did to Jesus, right? So it's really quite... it was a really uneasy and ambivalent relationship, I think, between my community and the Jewish faith, is what I would say. And I think sometimes what we don't understand in this country, because we are so secular and maybe culturally Christian, but actually it's everywhere. The Christian faith and the Jewish faith and the stories from both are actually everywhere. Like, I think about just in the entertainment industry, I think about the 10 Commandments. That was a massive film, one of those epics. I love an epic. It's like 4 hours long or something, and I really love it. And then you've got Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat.
The way I grew up to that one.
Yeah, and there's a line in it where it says, children of Israel are never alone. And then there's another line where it says, for I have been promised a land of my own. So that message is there. And that is a musical from at least 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on that. Like, I could literally sing you all the words because me and my brother used to watch, like, Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat every single weekend. Close every door to me. Me?
Me.
Is it me? I said him.
Well, because
And
he's,
it's
Joseph is he's just been kicked out of Potiphar's house. He's in the jail on his own. And he's just like, close every door to me, hide all the world from me. Bar all the windows and let out the light. La 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 la. You remember the kids?
I didn't. I
Yeah,
just
there's all
remember
the
that
kids.
if my life was important,
Yeah. I only remember the choir parts because I, as a music teacher, I once had to pull together the children's choir for the high school that we fed into for their performance of it.
Oh, wow.
And so I had all our kids do the la 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 la. La, 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 la.
Oh, how cute. I mean, even the
was
fact
so
that I say
cute.
it's cute is like,
Listen, there is
what we're
there is
talking about,
nothing more beautiful
Yeah.
than a bunch of children, like 20, 30 children singing together. It's one of the sweetest sounds
Yeah.
in the entire world.
It is.
It will always get me.
Yeah, I mean, it's very cute. But also, here's the fact that even in a very different kind of Christian or mixed faith community like I grew up in, the fact that I look at that and think, oh, sweet, but don't analyze
The lyrics.
all of the ideas that I was absorbing. This, in fact, being all the way in Botswana, absorbing this very Judeo-Christian storytelling, for want of a better word, and narrative in Southern Africa to the exclusion of all the African indigenous storytelling and the Muslim community storytelling and every other kind of, like, we had Hindus, we had, so, it's really interesting that it's just like, it's so nostalgic that you almost don't.
Look at how I'm smiling as I reminisce.
Yeah.
Because it's really good memories of those songs. I think about the Prince of Egypt.
Yeah.
That's another one that tells a story through animation of Moses, and his journey through Egypt as the king of Egypt, or Prince of Egypt, should I say? Well, the Prince of Egypt, hence the title, all the way through leading the children of Israel into their independence away from enslavement in Egypt.
Yeah.
Right? So there is so many, like, it's in the culture in ways that we don't even realize.
Yeah.
And we imbibe it by osmosis, whether you are Christian or not. You sing those songs, you watch those films, you're taking in those messages. It's almost subliminal.
Yeah. And hence in the culture we see, and this is what some people are really struggling with now, such pervasive anti-Semitism, but also so much I suppose, integration and representation of the Jewish story alongside the Christian story in response to this particular situation abroad.
Because it's founded on that.
Yeah.
The foundation of Christianity is Judaism.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, that is the fact of the matter. Those stories are our stories as well.
Yeah.
They've become our stories.
This is super fascinating. I really want to get into what all this means for how you personally are relating to what is going on in the Middle East, so-called Middle East. It's quite a colonial language to use in the first place, but that's another episode for another time.
Yeah. The British doing their thing as always.
I'm just going to say Palestine is my shorthand for now.
Okay.
Even though Israel is there as well. But
of course.
Palestine, I'm going to say Palestine. But yeah,
even
in terms of, even that is stating something in this moment.
It is.
But it's a thing I'm happy to state personally. So in relation to Palestine right now, I do want to know how all of what you've described shapes your response to it. But before we get there, I'm really interested in this piece of the conditioning about, Judeo-Christian stuff. For me, I had the opportunity to go and visit Jordan specifically in the Middle East back in 2017. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I'm resonating with you on as you speak is just how profound that visit was in terms of making me realize what all of that enculturation was doing to me as a kid. So I was there because I was working on a freedom of religion and belief project. It was working with communities, predominantly Muslim communities in Sudan and in Jordan. And I was being hosted by this Orthodox Christian priest called Father Nabil Haddad. And he managed and ran the Pope Francis Center for, I think it was called Intercultural Dialogue at the time. And he was also an advisor to the King of Jordan on interfaith relations. And anyway, after my time working there, he arranged for me to be taken around by his driver to see parts of Jordan, one of which was a place called Mount Nebo.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the resting place of Moses. So
Yes.
it's a very,
Very holy and
significant place for Christians. Have you been there?
I haven't been there, no.
Haven't been there.
No,
Okay.
I didn't get to.
And that made me, even though I had moved some way from being a practicing Christian by that point in my life, standing at the top of Mount Nebo, seeing the resting place of Moses, seeing the architecture, and then standing at the top of this mountain where there was this plaque that pointed to all the places I had read about in the Bible growing up, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, the fact that I could see Palestine, I could see Jericho, I could see Jerusalem, I could see all these places I'd heard of and that had been so important in my life, but somehow never felt real, like a far off land.
Yeah. They're almost like stories.
Yeah.
Distant childhood stories.
Yeah.
More than they are actual things.
Places.
Yeah. Actual places.
And it was so, it's exactly that. It was so profoundly impactful. It was like, oh, these places are real. I knew it, but I didn't know it. So I'm kind of, it makes me curious. Have you ever, I know you've been to the Middle East, but what was your experience of going to the Middle East like? And what did it mean for all those stories that you were told?
So I was in a Pentecostal megachurch around 2012. And they would go on yearly trips to the Middle East. And I went on one of those, and I think it was 2013. And it was my first time to be in that part of the world. And I felt so honored and so privileged. You know, at that point, I'm in like deep in my faith, you know, I had just become born again, probably for the third or fourth time, who knows? I've been baptized, I don't know how many times. I'm such a heathen. But this time,
you're really trying to baptize queer out of you.
This time I was like, this one is going to stick. This is the final and last one of me. So going to the Holy Land, as we called it, was really important. It was like a pilgrimage, you know, and I was really going to solidify my faith, consolidate my learnings, and really just get deep into my faith, right? So we landed in Tel Aviv, and we went from there to Jerusalem. And that's where the whole trip kind of started. Now, there was a whole bunch of us, I think it was like two or three coaches of Nigerians, aunties, uncles, all of us on these coaches, a rowdy bunch, but a wonderful bunch.
I'm so curious about this. Like, what were your first impressions of Israel?
Do you know what? It was a beautiful land.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful, beautiful land. I cannot tell you anything different. I'd be lying if I said anything different. The land is beautiful. The food was incredible.
Yeah.
And the people were just wonderful. They were so kind. They were so welcoming. They were so warm and so accommodating. I mean, it was a lot of Nigerians. Like there was like, I don't know, like 50 of us or something. I don't know how many there were of us exactly, but there was a lot of us, you know, and you know, we came with our energy, you know, and also London as well. We came with London Nigerian energy.
Wow.
It's a lot of energy in the space. And these people were just very calm and accommodating of us, and really love to tell us additional things about their culture and about the land and about the history as well. So we're getting lots of supplementary information and education about it as well. And I really love those moments, those almost informal moments where it wasn't like an actual activity, but you'd just be sat round in a garden somewhere, and then someone would just start telling you things that connected bits of your faith in new ways. So it made your faith come alive, and it made the Bible come alive. And that's before you've even got to the actual landmarks that are so important to us, right?
Do you remember any of the things that were shared with you that stuck?
For example, one of them was just the way of life for Jews back then.
Yeah.
Like just in terms of the way they lived their life. And like, for example, the carpenter in the village and what his role was. In the Bible, it just says he was a carpenter.
Yeah.
But then they were filling in the gaps. And they were saying, that they'd use these certain techniques, and the carpenter was important for this. Right. And so now you get a better, richer picture of Jesus and him and Joseph as carpenters, and Jesus learning at the feet of his father, Joseph, right?
Got it.
Well, there's his father, God, and then there's his biological, no, not even his biological, his earthly father, Joseph. This thing is just crazy. But anyway, we get to Jerusalem, and I hated it.
Really?
I hated Jerusalem.
Wow.
It was crowded. It was commercial. It was so touristy. And I'm sorry to say, and I hope I don't offend anyone, but I found all of the temples and stuff really garish. And they were at odds with us. So let's go a bit further here now.
Yeah.
So with us Pentecostal Christians, we don't have a lot of time for Catholic Christians.
Right.
So
that was in your community, like there was it actively said?
Oh, yes, very much.
Oh, so you guys, why are you with me? You are just messing up
left, right and centre. It obviously didn't stick.
Okay.
But, so my family's actually Catholic in origin.
Really?
It's my mum who broke away and became a Pentecostal Christian.
Okay, you have once told
So
me
I'm
that.
not talking out of my ass here. Like
Yeah.
I'm talking about actual things that I've experienced in terms of my mum having arguments with her siblings and my grandma who were Catholics and trying to get them to convert to Pentecostalism because for her, Catholicism is heathenistic and it's not right and you can't get to heaven with that because they worship Mary and you shouldn't worship Mary. She was just the vessel. You worship Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And that's it.
Consider me told. I will stop my Hail Marys and
Stop
get
them
my
immediately.
confessions.
Listen, no confess. And you don't confess to a man. No. You confess to God himself.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, fine. I'm told.
So in Jerusalem, there were what looked like a lot of Catholic temples. So there was almost like when we'd walk into one, you could just hear everyone go, huh.
Affronted by the bloody Catholics.
Look at all of the idolatry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of golden things.
Yeah, and you've been taught from previous episodes, you've said everything was about the simple life at that point, not yet prosperity gospel and flashy.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And this is a mega church. And this mega church didn't actually adhere to a lot of those things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They wore jewelry. They got their hair done. They wore trousers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But yet there was still this under thing of, this is very Catholic.
Yes.
And we don't do Catholic.
Exactly.
You know. So there was that sort of slight tension. But just on a personal level, it just felt overwhelming, really packed. They had this walk. It's like the walk that Jesus did to get the walk from wherever he was condemned. Is it?
Yeah,
like by the court or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
All the way to being crucified.
Right.
There's a walk that he took, and there's different stops along that walk. And there's a stop where that black man helped him with the cross because he fell down. And then the Roman soldiers just got some black guy, I think he was called Simon. Yeah, Simon of Cyrene, if I'm correct. Look at me.
Hey, you see your theological knowledge. I always say it's just next level.
Simon of Cyrene, my black brother.
He stood out to you.
He stood out. But
Why did they have to get the black brother? Was it just we are usually the mules of everyone as usual?
Well, but not back in Roman times, I don't think. I think everyone was enslaved in Roman times. It was like, can you do the work? Yeah, right. Okay, come on.
Pick up the cross. I mean?
So I think they probably just looked right away, you, over here. And he helped Jesus with the cross. Right. So there's that stop. And then there's like other stops along the way where the women wiped his face, for example. So it's like you follow the journey of Jesus all the way through to where he was crucified or whatever. So I thought that was quite interesting. People amongst us didn't feel it was accurate anyway.
Oh, right. So it caused squabbles.
Little squabbles. It's like, I don't know if they have just added this one into the
to the tourism
history books. You know what I mean? There was a lot of debate in Jerusalem, let's just put it that way. And there's lots of things being sold, like little things of holy water.
For 20 million pounds.
Yeah, exactly, for 20 million pounds.
You know them ones.
Touch this stone and you'll be healed. And
religious tourism is a whole
God. It was a whole other thing.
Honestly, yeah.
And then we went to the Wailing Wall.
Okay, yeah. Ooh.
That's where the Jewish people go to actually pray. So it actually is an actual place that actual Jewish people go to actually pray. It's not like some tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they go there in their traditional attire. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I don't want to describe things, but you'll know what I mean.
You can show pictures. I've seen it on documentaries.
Yeah, exactly. And they sort of go, they face the wall and they pray, and they sort of rock like this as they're praying. And so obviously we Christians felt like we needed to do that as well. So we also went to the Wailing Wall, and you kind of you put something like a prayer or something on a piece of paper and you put it into the crack. So if you look at the crack of the wall, there's lots of them,
Yeah.
And so we would go to the wall, write down our prayers, and then we folded it up and put it in the crack, and then we do our prayer without the attire and without the rocking. I actually really enjoyed that. I actually felt very spiritually connected when I did that, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
So Jerusalem, I didn't enjoy. Once we got out of Jerusalem into the countryside, it was like transcendence.
Really?
It was one of the most profound things I think I've ever experienced. I felt like I really became connected to the way Jesus lived, both as before his calling, just as a carpenter. So we went to Nazareth and we saw they had kind of mocked up a village that kind of showed what his life might have been like in his early years. And then after his calling, when he became the Jesus that we know with his disciples at like the Sea of Galilee. And the Sea of Galilee was so peaceful. The water was so clear. There were all these tiny little fishes there. I felt so at peace, the cool breeze. You know, we kind of did prayers on the seashore of the Sea of Galilee. I felt like my faith came alive.
Wow.
I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't get Bethlehem. I was just there and I was like, oh, is this Bethlehem? But then it's like, well, yeah, I mean, he was born in a stable, so what could you expect?
Were you expecting?
Yeah, exactly. We went, it's like some little thing. I was like, oh, I'm not sure what's going on.
What was it
here.
like? Was it?
It was just
modernized, like very.
No,
modern,
it wasn't modernized.
or?
It was just like, it felt like we just went into some little thing, like some little hole in the wall or something. I don't know.
Was that the stable?
I don't know that it was, because I don't think a stable would last that long.
So was this where the fact and fiction debates?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
coming?
Because if it's a stable how we put it in the nativity, then it's just some wood that's like this and then a trough and hay. That can't survive 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So I think either we got it
Creative
wrong.
license was taken.
Either we did creative license and said that it was a stable like that, or it was
For the
actually
tour
just
guides.
a rock, a hollowed out rock where they put a trough and some hay. Something wasn't adding up.
So somebody put a trough in hay there.
Yeah.
There was trough in hay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I was
all right.
like, okay, something's not adding up here.
Okay, fine. Anyway, you weren't quite convinced by that.
I
part
wasn't
of the trip.
100% convinced and I didn't really enjoy
So
it. It was
your
also getting
spirituality-
dark and it all felt a bit odd. And I was like, can we
Okay.
just get back on the coach and go home, please?
Your spirituality was leaving the building
Yeah, I
at
was
that
like,
point.
yeah,
You were
let's
like,
not,
no thanks.
let's not do this.
Okay.
And then we went to the Dead Sea. Now that was just chaotic because, okay, so for those who don't know, the Dead Sea is a sea that has a lot of salt in it. So technically you're supposed to float. That's just what it is because of buoyancy and all of that sort of thing. So you've got like 30 aunties and uncles all descending on the Dead Sea and being told that they will float because of the salt.
Yeah.
So they rush into the water. You know, they're not getting into bathing costumes because, you know, we're not sinners. So so they roll up their skirts and their trousers and their sleeves and they're really getting into it. And we've also been told that the mud from the Dead Sea is very potent and good for
healing
health
properties.
and healing properties and everything. So two things happen. All these aunties descend on the Dead Sea. And I don't know why, but a lot of them didn't float. So now you've just got flailing aunties. Hey, airport.
It's because to float in that sea, you need to relax.
Yes.
So they probably weren't
They
just
were not relaxing.
giving themselves up to the sea.
No, they weren't. They only give themselves up to God.
Yeah.
So now there's these flailing aunties who've got all these muscular Jewish men coming to help them out of the sea, pulling them out. You've got the other aunties who are like starting their businesses there and then. Like, I'm going to carry as much of this mud back to the
Sacred
UK
mud.
and I'm going to sell it. And I'm
Yeah.
going to start my healthcare, skincare business. So they're
Yep.
packing, you know, those takeaway
Containers.
plastic, packing it full of mud. The uncles are standing by just shaking their head like, God, what is going on? You know, the whole thing is just a mess. It's chaotic. But I really enjoyed that as well. And it actually does work. That mud does work.
That mud is amazing.
I had eczema and I put some on and it really did smooth it out.
I know that for a fact because I had one such auntie back home in Botswana come back with it. She wasn't a Botswana auntie. She was my friend's mum who was Jewish and who was going there because she went there. She was actually born in Romania, but obviously she has a strong connection to Israel, and she would come back with the mud and be like, this is what you need to do, and you know, wanting to sell it and wanting to talk about its amazing healing properties. So that one I know, and I did try it, and it was
it's good stuff.
unbelievable.
It's really, really good stuff. So so we visited all these places, and then the last stop was the River Jordan, and that is probably one of the most important places for us because it's where John the Baptist, who was Jesus's cousin and also revered in his own right, baptized Jesus himself. And so at that point in the trip, or should I say, I was then baptized in the River Jordan by one of the most prominent mega church pastors, probably in the history of Pentecostal Christianity, and it was Benny Hinn, who I talked about.
The one that went, rah!
Yeah, and I'm going to put the picture up for everyone to see. So he baptized me in the River Jordan in the same spot that Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist.
Whoa.
And I'm not going to lie, when I came out of that water, I can't explain what I experienced, but it was so overwhelming. I literally couldn't stop crying.
Yeah.
I went to the wall, my friend was there with me, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And I often wonder sometimes if it was that coming out of that river, I may have realized on a deep level that was the end of something. It was the end of this life, this community, it was, because when Jesus was baptized, he was baptized and then ushered into his calling, right? And I felt like when I came out of that, I was saying goodbye to something, but I didn't know quite what I was saying goodbye to. And so there was like a lot of grief. Wow. And I wept so deeply that I couldn't even be consoled. And I'm not really that kind of person.
No.
And actually, it wasn't long after that I left that church. And that's the last church I've ever attended.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? So I wonder if maybe on some
subconscious level.
Yeah.
Well, I want to understand that a bit more, because everything you described up to the moment of baptism, yeah, there was frustration, but your frustration was with maybe sometimes the accuracy of the story or the tourism or the commercialism. But everything you describe up to that moment was like more of an embodiment, more of a deepening of your faith, more of a seeing what this space was. And I find it so unexpected that your experience of baptism then produced almost this sense of departure.
Do you know what it is? At the time, it felt like a deepening of my faith. It felt like the pinnacle at the time.
Yeah.
Because we were all there dressed in white. You've got this mega church pastor who we all revere. It did feel like a deepening of the faith. But when I look at how I felt when I was weeping, that didn't feel like the deepening of my faith. It felt like a loss. It felt like a grieving in that moment.
And when you make sense of it from where you are now, do you have any idea of why that moment something started to unravel for you?
So I think it's probably good to say that prior to that trip, as part of my church's, I don't know, way of being in that church, they had like a sort of, I don't know what you would call it. Is it not a scheme? It's like they called it like a deliverance, right? And I fasted for 40 days or 8 weeks in order to not be gay.
Okay, to be delivered.
To be delivered from being gay. And
people knowingly put you through that, or that was just what was going on for you on your insides? You knew you were
that was going
gay.
on for me, but obviously the church also condemned it.
Yeah.
And there had been numerous people who'd come up to testify that they'd been delivered from homosexuality and so on and so forth. And so I was like, that's the thing that I need to pray for, because it's the thing that I'm definitely struggling with.
Yeah.
And that was only maybe about 6 months before that trip, maybe 6-9 months before that trip. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm realizing after that 8-week period that it hasn't really worked.
You've not been delivered.
I've tried, but it hasn't really worked, and it's still there. And then I go on this trip, and then I go into the River Jordan, and I come out, and it's almost like there's a knowing that you know before you know. There's a knowing of the spirit that your conscious, rational mind doesn't know.
I know it fully well.
And I think that might be what that was.
I feel emotional just listening to that.
Yeah.
Because I know exactly the thing you mean. But what I'm also hearing is you talk about Jesus, and I realize that this is going to be very controversial to some people listening and some Christians. But you talk about Jesus finding his calling. I think it's so interesting that at the moment of baptism, you discover that core of who you are is not something you can let go of.
Yeah.
And that you've then gone on to do so much work exploring that and exploring the relationship between faith and sexuality, and exploring the way, you know, many people who are marginalized and oppressed, who Jesus would himself have been in the corner of, has become your calling and your life's work. I don't want to overread that if it's not true for you, but I feel like there is a significance to that.
It's so weird because in that moment I felt so connected to Jesus, that part of my faith, but also I felt deep grief. It's a tricky one and I haven't fully understood or unraveled it, but those were my overwhelming feelings.
Yeah.
So those were the places that we went, you know, in Israel. And I really appreciated going, honestly, I really did. And at that time, I had no real understandings of Palestine and Israel. I didn't. The focus was on Israel and the Bible and our faith. That was it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you have shared is so profound. And that's exactly what I wanted to know before getting to this question of Palestine. And before we even get into that, I want to just say that the thing that I was trying to push you to find words for, that embodied feeling of that thing you know before you know, it's always the thing that's hard to put words to. Do you know what I mean? But I really do deeply relate to that feeling of an almost spiritual knowing something about yourself that exists beyond the ways that people and institutions talk about faith.
Yeah, and beyond words.
And beyond words. So I don't mean to do a violence to you by asking you to articulate something embodied, but
I don't think you are doing a violence at all. I think it's a really valid question. It's just something that I don't fully understand. And I think some things when it comes to the spirit, you can't understand with mere human faculties. And you can't express them with mere human words. Exactly. You know what I mean? I think about like just the spectrum of sound, right? Obviously I'm a sound engineer and we talk about 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. And then you realize that there are dogs, well, all dogs can hear way higher than what we can hear with our human hearing range. So that means there's a whole frequency spectrum that we can't even tap into. And that's just sound, right? That we're not even talking about color and light. So then what about spirit, you know? So I don't know. There's no words to express sometimes the spiritual aspects of things. And I don't always understand, but I know that I feel something. Or I felt something.
Yeah, and I could feel it as you spoke as well. You know? Okay, so let's come back to the Palestine question.
Yes.
I'm hearing about your spiritual journey and your social conditioning from the community you grew up in. And I do want to come back to this point about what is going on right now around Palestine, around Israel, and what it's meant to grow up in the way that you did and then be responding to this really fraught moment right now. How have you made sense of this moment?
Earlier in the episode, I talked about how it's taken over a decade for me to get to grips with and reconcile my faith and sexuality, right? So October 7th was the basis for the most recent spate of violence.
Really highly charged political discourse.
Yes. Genocide. Let's call a spade.
Yeah.
And I think I haven't had to grapple with that part of my conditioning because I spent the last decade grappling mostly with my sexuality and my faith.
Right.
And so it's only in the last couple of years that I've actually had to grapple with Israel-Palestine. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like actually,
of course,
like so go, what do I believe actually?
Yeah, because
really,
if
I was in the church, I wouldn't grapple with it. It would just be Israel right, Muslims wrong. And that's how it would be framed, even though there are Christian Palestinians. Do you know what I mean? There's no nuance really. It's just Israel are God's people. They're the chosen people. They're the holy people. They're the set apart people.
Yep.
And so they're right. And you can't say anything against them prior to the church. Whilst being in the church.
Yeah. Was that an active narrative in your church or just an extension of what you told me earlier, that they were the chosen people, therefore you believe that's what would be said now if you were still in the church.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've heard my people saying that.
Yeah.
I call them my people. But,
Yeah, but they are kind of.
I see what they
We're all-
post on like WhatsApp statuses.
Yeah.
I see the absence of them even talking about it. And very often in our church, in my church circles anyway, the absence of something is usually, I'm not talking about that because I don't agree. And also I don't want to say something because I know that the world thinks this and I believe this thing. So often they just won't say anything.
Yeah.
But in them not saying anything, they're saying what they
Something,
believe.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. A silence that's very loud.
Precisely, yeah.
It's so, can I just say
Yeah,
something?
yeah, no,
because
please.
you explaining more about your conditioning has been really revealing and helpful for me to make sense of things. So one of the things I found really hard is when I've seen Black Christian friends from back home being so vocally in support of Israel and its actions at this time. And I found that so tricky because for me, those are people, I'm talking about South Africans who grew up under an apartheid state. Now, where my condition differs from yours is, yes, I heard all of that same storytelling about Judeo-Christian relationships, but I also grew up neighboring an apartheid state. And the one abiding ally you would have in that struggle against white dominance and white rule or colonial rule was that we had solidarities with the people of Palestine. Which is why it's no surprise that South Africa
has led the charge. Yeah.
In terms of seeking justice for Palestinian people. And so for those Black Christians who I knew in particular, I could not understand, I don't understand how in your history you've got there, but you giving me this explanation
Conditioning
of the
is
theology has made me go, oh, okay, so that conditioning is overwriting the anti-colonial, anti-apartheid resistance that is so deep in the culture as well for us.
People don't realize how powerful religious conditioning is. People will literally blow themselves up for their religion, commit suicide for their religion, sacrifice things.
Sacrifice their lives.
Sacrifice their lives for their religion, go into battle for their religion, torture, kill, destroy for their religion. Religious conditioning is really powerful.
Well, also, we're now talking about the intersection of religious conditioning and politics, which is a very particular brand of the thing. But yeah, I agree with
explain.
you.
I want to know.
No, just that, a lot of people who resist maybe more, even this is going to get fraught with words, but maybe more radical or extreme manifestations of religion like to separate their faith from their politics, which I don't believe you can really do.
No, I don't think you can.
But they don't
as we've
always,
seen.
but they don't always manifest in that extreme way. Some people's faith or spiritual perspective combines with politics in a much more diffuse way, which can make it even harder to trace.
That's the problem.
Kind of thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very complex terrain.
It's complex, it's tricky, it's easy to trip up.
Yeah.
And probably I'm tripping up even as I talk right now. But what I will say is that I've never had to wrestle with that.
Yeah.
Because that was not my primary thing.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, October the 7th was the trigger for what we're seeing currently.
Yeah.
Even though there is years of history going back, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds of years of history, right? So for me, in that process, it took me some time because what I felt like I was having to do is undo the conditioning around, in my mind, saying something bad about a chosen people, a holy people, the people that birthed my faith, the people that gave us Jesus Christ, the name above all names and all of this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to say something bad, there's like an internal thing I have to undo. Now I'm going to blaspheme. Can I? Can I not? Do those rules even still apply to me, even though I'm not in the church anymore? Will I be punished? You're still grappling with things that seem silly to other people, but the conditioning is strong. And it took me some time.
Yeah, of course it would. But I'm also curious, when you say to say something bad, I'm curious as to what the bad is. Because for me, like, what is the thing that's hard to say or to consider that you've had to make to undo?
So I think to say that Israel are wrong for being in that land, because remember the song I told you, Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat, I have been promised a land of my own. Mm-hmm. As Christians, we were firmly behind Israel being in that land.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's their land and they have a right to be there. So now you're going to say they don't have a right to be there and they're God's chosen people. So you're saying that God is wrong. Because that's the indirect thing. You're saying, therefore, that the children of Israel, who are the children of God, don't have a right to be in the land that God gave them.
Okay, you mean the land that they are now continuing to take up in the Gaza Strip, for example?
You're saying that they don't have a right to push ahead and take the land that they have been promised going back however long, right? So that's the first thing.
Okay.
And the second thing, you've got a battle in Christians' minds between Muslims and Jews. Mm-hmm. That in Christians' minds, I know there are Palestinian Christians. I'm just saying about some of the twisted thinking that we have.
Well, in your community, that's what it would have been.
In my community, that's what it is. It's Muslims and it's Jews. And Jews we can get to grips with, as I mentioned earlier, because half our Bible is them and they're God's chosen people. Now, Muslims, on the other hand, let's not even get into what my people believe about Muslims.
Yeah.
That's not a battle that we care if they win. We don't want them to win.
Okay.
Let's just call a spade a spade.
Okay. So
Islam is not a faith that we really get to grips with.
Okay. So for you in this moment...
This is so uncomfortable.
No, I realise it's really uncomfortable, but actually I think there is something important about talking about what the enculturation was and what it meant for you.
Yeah.
And I suppose the place, because I'm coming from a very different place in some respects, it was so interesting that when I said what is bad, you went straight to the issue of land and settlement and right to be on land.
And religion,
and religion. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you started talking about the latest thing, the first place I'm going to is this current moment where people are being starved and aid is being denied.
Well, this is what I had to get to grips with, though.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Is that as it went on, I was like, forget all of that. What is actually happening out there?
Right.
People are being slaughtered. People are being starved. Kids are being shot dead.
There's collective punishment as if you were just born in Palestine, you must now be a terrorist.
Exactly.
Which is a stereotype.
And then look at all the journalists that have been killed. As I looked at what I was seeing, particularly as I focused less on mainstream media, as I focused more on alternative media and journalists who were no longer working for institutions and were reporting independently, I started to really realize what was going on the ground.
Or even just the mainstream media from those parts of the world. Because
like Al Jazeera.
Middle East Eye,
yeah,
etc.
Exactly. So consuming that.
Other sources of news.
It really helped me
to
understand what was going on and to piece together my own thoughts separate from what I had been conditioned to believe and to come to my own understanding of where I stood on the issue.
And I know this is really like quite a lot of unpacking for you, but I'm asking because I know that we have been out together in certain, I guess, public demonstrations.
Yeah, we've been at protests, and quite a few up here in Leeds. We've had some, which have been brilliant.
Yeah, and even until we started talking about this episode, I hadn't really appreciated the level of self-exploration and reflection, and
those early protests were really uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, I have to be honest, I didn't realize that.
I couldn't express it because I didn't want to. The thing in the world that we live in right now is that everything's so polarized, and I felt like if I expressed that discomfort, how will it be received by you? Will you just see me as like cowardly or like not wanting to stand for something, or, you know, would it turn into like a really big, horrible, because I was seeing how friendships were being torn apart, relationships were being torn apart, communities are being torn apart. I was like, I don't want us to be torn apart by this thing. Do you know what I mean?
But then did you feel compelled to do something that you weren't quite ready for or didn't
I
quite
would say the very first protest, I would say that I didn't know what to expect.
You went to the first protest on your own without me, if
because
I'm not
I saw
mistaken.
them. I saw them on the
Okay.
thing. And in that moment, I just felt this really strong conviction. Again, it comes back to that spiritual thing. I just felt this overwhelming urge. Even as I say it right now, I feel goosebumps that I have to go and join these people. Do you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like, I just need to go. Even if I just walk behind, I just felt like I had to be there
Yeah.
and add my voice because I had been doing a lot of that thinking. And then, of course, I came home because it was impromptu and it was
Yeah.
only for the last 5 minutes or whatever before they reached the Millennium Square, I think it was, where they congregated. And then I listened. I wanted to listen to what are people saying? What are the speeches? Who are the voices? What new information am I going to get from this to help clarify my thinking?
Yeah.
And the second time it was me and you together.
Yeah.
And I was still sort of grappling with.
I mean, you say that as if
Yeah.
you're the only one grappling. What I cannot...
No, I know I'm not the only one.
No, what I
I
mean
definitely
is
know
I was
that.
also grappling with certain things.
Okay.
I don't know if you know that. on
Okay,
that
no, I
march.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. It's so...
Yeah, but what I don't grapple... So, for example, when very, very early on after October the 7th and when that was set as a pretext for war, there was somebody who had been a Commonwealth scholar who was connected to a whole bunch of Commonwealth scholars that I worked with on a freedom of religion and belief program. And he was a doctor in Palestine. And he, unfortunately and very sadly, probably about a month into things kicking off, died under the rubble. And this was in my last month and a half, 2 months of writing up. And so I was writing up my PhD thesis. A lot of it touched on work in interfaith. And I was working with an amazing woman called Samia, who is Muslim and was also a PhD student. And most days I'd be getting up to write and I'd be crying. And I felt so, I had so much going on in my own life at the time. I was sick. My mum and dad were both sick back home. I didn't have any, and I was in my final months of write-up, I didn't have any time to go to a protest. And I actually was feeling so bad that I couldn't express it. But then even when I turned up to that protest with you on that day, I absolutely believe that, this was the force that was being used by the state of Israel and October 7th as a pretext for what's really going on, I found very, very problematic. So I was unequivocal about that, wanting to stand behind that. But then there are sometimes these very all or nothing narratives. Like even when we were on that protest, I can't remember exactly what it was that was said, but there was one of the chants. I was behind all the chants. And then there was one thing said in the chant that was just so far from how I actually think about the world. And I didn't
It almost felt hate-filled.
It felt shaming of people who maybe weren't there yet. It felt hate-filled and whatever. But that is the nature of activism. That is the nature of movements, is often these things take on a life of their own and you're aligning yourself with a thing. And it doesn't mean you believe every single thing that's said, that, that there aren't complexities to these discussions. I know many people who are Jewish who will have had families called up into the army for a war that they wouldn't even want their loved ones fighting. And those loved ones probably don't. And they're also conditioned into something. It is deeply complex and deeply difficult. I know people who feel their lives are at threat or the lives of their family are at threat, even in Israel, which seems hard to imagine when you've seen the sheer destruction in Palestine. But it is those people genuinely feel that. And so when you're walking into a protest that has such a strong narrative and sometimes no room for some nuance, it can feel hard. But it was also for me, like you, there is no way I cannot not put my voice behind this, because the collective starvation and the collective punishment of children, of women, but also of men, is really hard for me to fathom.
It's hard to fathom and it's hard to stomach as well. It's hard to stomach. And, I'm anti-war.
That can be at its most basic level.
I'm anti-war.
Yeah.
I'm anti-genocide.
Yeah.
And that's all the genocides, Congo, Sudan, all of them, you know what I mean? I think I think one of the things I want people to understand about what's going on right now, the thing that a lot of people don't understand is the powerful religious forces at play. Because in the West, like I said at the beginning, we often think that we're secular. We're a Christian nation, but we're very secular. It's almost like you say, we're culturally Christian. And I think it's important for people to understand that that Christian aspect hasn't gone away. And so when certain decisions are being made by Western governments, they're being made from that place of Christianity. And my experience as a Pentecostal fundamentalist Christian hopefully gives you some insight into some of that conditioning that underpins a lot of what is going on right now. And I think that's the thing I want to get across in this episode. And I don't know how else to say it, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you speaking to it in a way that is true to the reality of where you are.
Yes.
I think it's very hard for people to name that.
Yes.
And I know it's messy and I know it's uncomfortable. And obviously it's partial because it's just your take and a bit of my take.
Yeah.
But
as Chimamanda said, the single story is not great.
yeah.
And we should stay away from a single story. But I think understanding at least this aspect of it might help in the conversation about the whole.
Yeah, and it certainly helped me, like I said, just to understand people who would have had the same belief system as you, why they're taking their position.
Exactly. These conversations are tricky. And I think we all have to be brave when tackling conversations like this. We don't have all the answers. We absolutely do not have all the answers at all. And there are many things that we're still trying to understand and grapple with. There are many facts that we're still trying to understand and even know. But what I will say is that we're on that journey, you know, we're facing what we need to face, and we are asking the questions we need to ask, and we are reading and trying to understand.
Yeah, and the most that one can ever do is their own work. And yeah, that involves taking an interest and exploring the perspectives of others, but it also looks at what shaped me, which I think you have done an excellent job of it being really vulnerable and open about, because you talked about some stuff today that wasn't easy.
Yeah, and I really hope that people take it in the spirit with which I've put it out there.
Yeah.
You know,
Likewise.
and some understanding of that, you know, because it's not easy, you know, and I am trying to undo a lot of that conditioning.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I've
Like,
seen
I'm really
you
trying.
doing it. I've seen you you do a lot more than many people are willing to face. So I think that's all anybody can ask of people.
Yeah, exactly. That brings us to the end of today's episode, and it's weird. I feel kind of emotional. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite tough, you know, because those moments were so important.
Yeah.
And that community was so important. And I don't think that they're evil people by any stretch. I think they want, you know, what's best for themselves and their relationship with God. And I don't know.
Do you feel like you're betraying them?
No, I don't feel like I'm betraying. The world is so complicated. You know, it's so complicated and nothing is straightforward and nothing is black and white, you know. And I think everybody's just trying to make it through this life in the way that they know how. And it's like a mix of like sadness and I don't know. Yeah, just, you know what I mean?
No, I do. I think it's
Because in some ways I miss my people.
yeah, of course.
You know?
Of course. That's an ache that would never go away.
Yeah.
And being able to see that distance with where you are now probably reinforces the sense of distance of how far you are from them.
Yeah. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
of
even
course.
reflecting on all that stuff, it's like, yeah, I think that's all I'll say on that. But I think that brings us to the end of this episode. And thank you for being a part of this journey and the conversation. And as always, leave a comment. You know, I know it's a heavy topic and I know that you out there will have thoughts on that. And I definitely want to hear and answer whatever I can answer. And yeah, just thank you for being a part of the journey. And thank you for, giving us this space to talk about the issues of our time, essentially, is what I would say.